Welcome back to the show. It's your boy, Marco, aka. I'm not gonna give you that AKAs yet. But and we also got Melly in the building.
Yeah. What up? How's everybody feeling?
Man, hopefully you guys are feeling phenomenal. Um, but what's been up, CuZZo? How you been?
I'm good, man. Another week in the books. I can't complain. And
Feeling freaky this Friday? I'm sorry. Uh
huh?
what'd you say? I said Freaky Friday. What'd you say? Frisky Friday. My bad. I don't know
Oh,
why I always got freaky on my mind,
you
but
said Freaky Friday.
I'm
Whoa,
feeling
whoa,
frisky this
whoa.
Friday.
Yeah. What you got on your mind? You about to hit the happy hour? About to try to get into something?
Hey man, nah, I'm chilling. I'm chilling. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Nah, but yeah, I'm feeling good, man. Like you said, another day in the books. Um, I had jury duty. Well, I had the report earlier this week. You have to call in every day, and I was hoping, that I didn't get called, but lo and behold, on what's today? Thursday? No, today's Friday. As we just said that. I got called in on Wednesday. They was like, "Yeah, you got a report."
Mm.
I get there, and then they leave your boy in suspense. They're like, "We have a case that's going to be for 28 days." I was like, "Lord, if you please don't do me like that." And so they were like, "If we call your name, come to the front, and then you'll have to come back on Monday the 28th, and then we'll select jurors." So they called the names, and luckily mine wasn't called. And then at the end of the day, I think they actually let us go early. They assigned everybody to a case. So luckily I wasn't selected. So my civic duty is complete, and I was up out of there. So just in that, it was a good week.
Indeed. That sounds
Yes,
like
sir.
you was there, but you didn't want to be there. So
You know,
you know, shouts out to whoever didn't call your name.
yeah. If they had called my name, I would have been like that. Crickets. But yeah, I'm happy about that. Also, at USC, the Festival of Books is gonna be going down. So I might stop by there, check it out. I'm actually gonna be in the area anyway because I have a dentist appointment. So that might be what is on my docket for this weekend. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, man. We'll see. We'll see how things go after I get my teeth worked on. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Um, all right, first off, Shannon Sharpe. He's facing a $50 million lawsuit for sexual assault. And now another ex is suing him for defamation. He's denying all of it and stepping away, but he's stepping away from ESPN. I think it's all a
I'm
mess.
just I just seen him on the show this morning. I ain't stepping away.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I have that video up right now. I do have another video. We could actually take a look at it, but he put out a statement yesterday and said that he was stepping away so he could, be with his family and work on resolving, or taking care of the issue at hand. So yeah. How do you think what about you? How do you think it plays out? Especially, how high profile he's gotten. You think he could bounce back from this?
It's gonna play out how it's gonna play out. At the end of the day, when you get high profile and then something happens, most people are never really able to recover, from the allegations, whether they are, presumed to be false, or whatever, because the news cycle and the way that people look at information, it goes and it flows in a season. So I mean, he'll be looked at not unfavorably, I don't think, in many most cases, because it's kind of like, how his popularity has come to be is kind of been on stuff like this, antics
Right.
and popular conversations, and people have been following, um Club Shay Shay and the After Dark Talk
Nightcap.
with him and Ocho.
Yeah.
They talk about these types of things. He promotes male enhancement pills.
Right. Rose Sparks.
Bro sparks. You know what I'm saying? So some of these things and the ways that you go about and promoting yourself and the things that you involve yourself in, it leaves you open to a lot of different ways someone can attack you or some people can attack you. The vulnerabilities, are really high for people who indulge in certain ways and means of how they live their lifestyle. Especially if you talk about it publicly like
Right.
that, it's very, very easy. You become a very easy target to hit, you know.
Right.
So unfortunately from him, whether it's true or not, I don't even really think that's the case, but the damage I believe has already been done. Because anytime you got to pay money, or anytime somebody say anything inappropriate, you did this, you did that, you're always looked at a little bit differently. You know,
Right.
your clean record or your clean slate is no longer there.
Right.
So you're not as favorable as you could have been before. Which probably got you jobs ahead of other people. Of course you could talk, you got a little bit of a but people could still understand you.
Right.
So um yeah, man, I mean, like anything, we'll just have to see how it plays out, and see how it goes. Hopefully he can recover from it, because I don't think he's a bad dude, but unfortunately, just the way he goes about doing certain things, it leaves him, open to be targeted in certain ways.
Right. Do you think though this is just do you think men outside of that space are targeted? And I'm not saying just like your average, 9 to 5 dude, but I mean like guys of wealth, like there's a guy who's a high earner in his particular field. Like, do you think women target them as well?
Oh, of course. I mean, not only in the entertainment field, but in the blue collar world, or the white collar world. Women are going to look for easy targets, and it could be organizations of women, it could be organizations in particular that send women. There's many different ways that these things may and can happen.
Right.
So um, for women in general, I believe they, especially these days, a certain type of caliber women, how they look at these types of men and what they're looking for, what they want, is very superficial and it's very transactional.
Right.
you know so if we're looking at it from the standpoint of, oh, he has money, he has the ability to you know put me in these positions, or allow me to experience these things and have these things, then of course you're going to target those guys that have the capability, without even lifting a finger, you know. So the guys that get targeted are the ones that seem to be not very smart, you know, in terms of how they see things. They see it from a very, you could say, egotistical, a naive, standpoint. Um, because there's no way that, I'm going to allow somebody to get me in the predicament. And, I can be speaking on that way because I'm on the outside looking in, but,
Right.
knowing what I know now, going through my situations, I'm not definitely gonna let anything like that happen again.
Right.
Be it may so, my woman could divorce me tomorrow, and then it's like, okay, well, how you got me? And then after
Right.
that, it's like I'm on some Book of Eli stuff. I'm just on the road alone by
Right.
myself, holding this book, gardening with my life, So that's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and play this video real quick. Um, it's actually of a young lady. She's a influencer. She's reacting to the whole Shannon Sharpe allegations. We'll see what she has to say here.
In my opinion, he had it coming. Do I think that this girl is 100% exploiting him? 1,100,000,000,000%. I think she is. She sees a meal ticket and she's trying to get as much money as she can. But why else would a 19-year-old get with a 57-year-old if it wasn't to dig some gold or to go up in levels? And nothing against Shannon Sharpe, but he looks like he's in his 50s, okay? He's not that he looks like he's Brad Pitt or Idris Elba. Like, he
I don't know what
looks
that
in
means,
his
but
50s. A 19-year-old girl would have nothing to do with you unless you had money and gold to dig. And you, in your grown-ass age, should not be messing with someone that young to begin with. If you don't want to be exploited, let's not go to that pool that would obviously try to exploit you. This is real stupid. And I don't care if it's legal, because that's what everyone's gonna say. It's legal, it's legal. You guys, if the legal age changed to 10 tomorrow, you would start dating an 11-year-old. It's ethically wrong. What does a 50-something-year-old man have to do with a girl that just got out of high school? There is more age difference between them two than her actual age. Put that in before her, like, that she's been alive on this earth. And you think a 19-year-old is going to love him for him? He doesn't love her for her. He loves that she looks good. She loves that he has money. That's the match. I'm not shocked that she's exploiting him. Men have to do better about protecting their legacy. And even though it's illegal, doesn't mean that it's right, okay? We can say that cheating is wrong, even though it's legal. Like, there's no criminal offense for cheating. Up to the 90s, it was okay to R-word your wife. Like, he should not be dealing with a 19-year-old. Or this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So I'll just jump in first. I agree with some of what she said, but then I also totally disagree with some of what she said. The problem that I have is there's a double standard. We actually just reacted to Tracy Ellis Ross last week, and we didn't play that particular video about her talking about she doesn't like to date older men, but she, in that same episode, she said she doesn't like to date older men. She likes younger men because older men are toxic. So I know you're probably like, oh, this is a different scenario. But if we want to go further, if you look at Jalen Green, Anthony Edwards, and some other professional athletes who are in their 20s, some of them are just probably hitting mid-20s, but most of those young men are 22, 23, 21, and they have a lot older baby mothers now. And guess what? I've heard some people talk about Drea as it relates to Jalen Green, but not as many people talk about Drea Michelle and these other ladies as it relates to them dating younger men. I think if it's good for one side, then it's good for the other side. If it's bad for one side, it's bad for the other side. And also I found that it's for some reason it's hard for women to accept accountability for anything that they do. So that explains why we don't hear much being said when it comes to Drea and all these other women. I don't think it's fair. You know, I've heard so many people discuss it, and all the time it's the man's fault. And I think that's, you know, I'm a man and I know what it takes, and I know what men have to deal with. You know, and we are expected to take accountability for any and everything, and that's how we go about life, right? Because we know that if we don't take accountability, then no, I mean, we know we have to, if we don't take accountability is going to be assigned to us anyway, and that's the unfortunate part. So I agree with her saying, you know, he has to be more mindful, you know, of the people that he deals with. You know, I know she's an OnlyFans model, but I heard that they met at the gym, so I don't know if he initially knew. But you have to be more careful, Shannon, for sure. You know, I follow you, you know, meaning that I watch your content and I enjoy your content, you know, and you know, hopefully, you know, things work out for you. But even if this doesn't, even if she doesn't get paid out the money that she's looking for, because I don't think I think we addressed that, but yeah, $50 million, right, is what she's asking for. And there's two things I want to address with that. If things don't work out for her, she still won. You know why she won? Because she used Shannon Sharpe's prowess, his fame, etc., to put attention on her. And I don't have the numbers, but I can guarantee you right now that her OF went up because they want to see. I guarantee you that it went up. OF going up. It was going up this week. I can guarantee you that. And she already, like you said, CuZZo, she already did the damage. The damage is done. And sometimes people look at people like this, you know, in fame, you know, and like stars and people like that, and wonder why they settled. This is why they settled. They settled because more damage could be done, even if it's not true. And so that's the unfortunate thing, man. Like I said, I'll let you jump in because if you want to share anything on, you know, on that video or anything else.
I mean, you said it. You said it all pretty much. I mean, for the most part, I mean, she said some of the same things I said similarly. You know, in terms of, you know, opening yourself up, you know, to, you know, being exploited. But I mean, going into it, you would never think, okay, this is something that's going to happen to me. You know, age has nothing to do with that. I mean, like you said, it's definitely a double standard.
Right.
You know, women never mention it the other way. They only mention it the man's way. So, you know, I don't believe any of that is a real factor. An adult is an adult. You know, of course, if it were my daughter, I would definitely be saying, hey, you might want to, you know, try to date someone else. This guy is a little bit old, a lot more experienced than you. You guys might not be looking for the same thing at this current time. You guys might not be on the same level in terms of experience. Matter of fact, I know you're not.
Right.
You know, and what makes you liken to this guy? Like, what do you like about this guy? You know, so those are some of the things that, you know, I would be in her ear about. And, you know, her being 19, you know, how, you know, well, I don't know what her upbringing is. I don't know what her background is, but, you know, who kind of put her up to this? Is this something
Right.
that she thought about on her own? Is this something that she just kind of feel like, oh, well, I just feel, you know, taken advantage of, blah, blah, blah. And 9 times out of 10, you know, people are not trying to blow up their spot. You're already an OnlyFans model, so it's just kind of like, I'm pretty sure you're making decent money. But like you're saying, like now, you know, it's probably going up. You know, it's jackpot. season right now on OF, you
For
know,
sure.
because you're being connected to, you know, to this guy that's a lot more famous than you. But other than that, man, like I said, we'll see how it plays out. And like I'm always call out the whole double standards thing for sure, because yeah, that's something that we can need to continue to focus on. Because if you guys want equal treatment, equal opportunity, equal pay, blah blah blah, you gotta take it on both sides. It can't just be, you know, winning how you want it. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 1000%. Like, man, it's crazy. Um, I know he's pretty private, and I'll just add this last thing. The same lawyer who's representing her is the same lawyer who represented the young lady who came out, you know, about Jay-Z, right? Jay-Z and Puff said she was 13. I don't know if you're familiar with that, CuZZo, but she said that they essayed her, you know, and everything was dropped. It was the case was dropped. There was one other person, and I don't want to. I guess I'll leave it because I don't remember who the person was. But he also, you know, and Stephen A. talked about this. But that's the same lawyer who represented the people who came out against Deshaun Watson as well.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's two sides to it. You don't know kind of, you know, what to believe. You know, I just think this is a bad situation. You know, and I'll just address this last thing and we can move on to the next topic. But the problem in this is, like I said, she already won because even if she doesn't get the money, she's profiting from this. But what happens if she is lying?
Nothing.
Nothing.
And bro just goes away.
And that's unfair and unfortunate because we've seen it take down a lot of people. It's caused a lot of men to lose their money, lose their reputation. Jonathan Majors, even though Johnny Depp won in court, his legacy was still diminished. They took stuff away from him, money, you know, opportunities away from him. You know, Jay-Z, you know, that didn't last long, but still people were saying he did it before, you know, he was, you know, guilty in a court of public opinion already, you know, before anything else happened. And there's a lot of other guys that I can't think of right now, but nothing happens to the accuser when they find out, you know, that they're lying, which is not fair. Like when I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe when women start getting prosecuted for lying, that they're going to stop doing this because it's a risk that I don't think they're willing to take.
Mm.
But I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. The Duke lacrosse team. The girl said she was lying.
Mm.
They lost scholarships. You know, we don't know how their lives would have turned out if that thing hadn't happened. I mean, they did put themselves in a certain position. I mean, you know, in a certain situation, but it's like when it comes to men, you blame the person who's the victim. They didn't do anything necessarily illegal. And I'm sorry, I know I'll say one last thing. This is the other thing too. If you're saying that he physically did something to you, why is it that it's a civil case? I asked my sister last night. So if somebody said you did something, what would you do? Would you want it to be? Would you want to go after them? You know, criminally? Would you want them to go to jail? You know, and she was like, "Yes. If you did something to me, I want you off the streets." And so that's another thing that raises a red flag is that they, you know, it always becomes a civil case, which they could do both. It could be like, oh, we going to criminal court, you're gonna go to jail for what you did, and then, you know, we're gonna come back and then take your resources because, you know, of hardship and all these other things, mental distress and all the other things that they, you know, they claim in court. But yeah, it's unfortunate, man. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully, like if he did it, he deserves what happens. But if she's lying, something needs to happen as well. Yes, sir. Anyway, on to the next topic. Los Angeles budget cuts. Our great mayor, Mayor Karen Bass, just dropped the city's new budget plan, and it's looking like layoffs are coming for over 1,600 workers. I'm gonna go ahead and roll that beautiful bean footage. Let's see. There we go.
Budget proposal after delivering her State of the City address.
The proposal outlining layoffs and other drastic cuts to offset a nearly $1 billion budget deficit. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell live in downtown LA with details. Josh.
And there is a long list of challenges facing Los Angeles, recovering from the fires, a massive budget deficit, preparing the city to host the World Cup and the Olympics, to name a few. Today, Mayor Bass laid out a plan to balance the budget, which includes letting go of 1,647 city workers.
A critical moment for Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass as she leads the city through the most destructive fire LA has ever experienced, the Palisades fire.
We need a citywide turnaround, and we need a fundamental overhaul of city government to deliver the clean, safe, and orderly neighborhoods that Angelenos deserve.
But prior to the fire, the city was in serious financial trouble, and we've now learned a nearly $1 billion budget deficit could result in as many as 1,600 city employees losing their jobs.
I want to be straight with you. My proposed budget, unfortunately, includes layoffs, which is a decision of absolute last resort.
In addition to the layoffs, Bass has proposed eliminating 1,074 vacant positions, combining city departments, delaying capital projects, and lowering funding in the mayor's office. Not impacted by the proposed layoffs, the Los Angeles Fire Department and sworn officers in the Los Angeles Police Department. In the 2025-2026 proposed budget, the LAFD will see an increase of 12.7%, which will fund 227 new positions. The budget deficit is fueled by lower than anticipated revenue from taxes, new labor contracts with police, civic workers, and firefighters, and liability payouts, which could exceed $300 million. David Green is president of the union that represents 10,000 city workers.
Even one layoff for our LA city workers is one too many. These are folks that are serving the public every single day. It doesn't matter if they're trimming trees or fixing sidewalks or in sanitation, taking out people's trash. It's really important that we hold on to every single one of these jobs.
Bass highlighted how homelessness and crime are headed in the right direction according to the latest data, but renewed her call for the state to triple the TV and film tax credit in order to bring Hollywood back. As far as hosting the World Cup and the 2028 Olympics, Bass said Angelenos must come together.
This is about all of us. It's about choosing to believe in each other again and the future of the city that we love.
Can't hear you.
My bad.
Oh, it's on me first.
Yeah,
I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
muted myself. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once they cut they budget, cut their money first. Whatever y'all making, cut y'all money. Why y'all getting rid of stuff that you already need? You already don't have enough people working as it is in LA. LA still is nowhere near where it needs to look, the way it should look,
It's like the regular folks always catch the L when the budget gets tight, right?
Right, exactly. You guys already have stolen a lot of this money, put it to places and uses that it shouldn't have been going, you know. So it's just kind of like now you have this whole fire situation, and now you're probably over budget in a lot of areas, you know, and it's kind of like, oh, well, now we got to make cuts in order to be under the budget because we are already extremely over the budget, you know. Okay, well, whose fault is that? The people's? So you cut back workers, and now what? Now what is that going to do? You're still not going to have the resources and the people you need to, you know, run the city, you know, at an efficient rate.
Right.
You know, and it hasn't been efficient for a long time. We know that because, you know, homelessness has been what it is. You know, Skid Row's always been Skid Row, but it's becoming, you know, more and more frequent in other spaces and places, you know. So, you know how I feel about, you know, politicians, especially the
Right.
ones in California. I
Yeah.
don't trust them, you know. You know, I don't believe anything they say. You know, it's a lot of dog and pony show. It's a lot of lip service, and you're not really telling people, you know, the real truth about what's going on and what you did with their money and who's in real control. Because it's not her talking.
Right.
You know, she's just put up there to make everybody feel okay. You know, while they continue to take away and take from you and give away more control to somewhere else or somebody else. So, you know, you're trying to bring Hollywood back. Okay, that's some job, but those are not the real jobs that you really need. You need the city workers, you know, doing their jobs. Like the guy was saying, the people to take out your trash and, you know, the sidewalk people, they definitely ain't been hiring there because I know a lot of streets and sidewalks
Right.
that's messed up actually.
Right.
So we need the people. Are you trying to bring FIFA here and the Olympics? Y'all trying to get rid of people? How? How, Sway? Tell me.
Right. Yeah. It's
Make it
crazy.
make sense, please. You tell me, Marco. I don't know. I'm not the smart guy here. You let me know.
It doesn't make sense to me at all, man. I don't really know and know what to say.
Why are we
but
over budget? Tell me that. Why? How did we get over budget? What happened?
Where is the money going?
Where'd the money go? And where did the extra money go? If you had a budget, now you're over budget. So what happened with the money that we have for the budget? But now you over budget. So where'd that money go? Now you gonna say it was the fires. So why did the fires happen?
Right.
It was a natural disaster or was it an arsonist? No, we already know that wasn't true.
And now I think she said the majority, well, a large portion of the budget is going into fire, right? And so now they're trying to overcompensate for the lack
Something
of
you should have already been doing.
For.
Yeah.
Right.
And you guys removed all those safe gaps and safeguards, and it bit you in the ass.
100%. Yeah, I just think they all are. I'm not gonna say all, but there may be some good ones out there, but the faces of these different, you know, positions are, you know, POSs to me.
Yeah.
You know, the person that busts their butt every day to work and take care of their family, take care of themselves, they're the ones that are gonna get bit in the butt. You know, y'all tax the hell out of us in California, and where does that money go? It's no way we should be. I thought it was $800 million, which is crazy, but I saw one thing that said 1.6 billion just in LA alone. And our state is in the decabillions deficit. Where did all that money go? Like
other countries?
Yeah, you said you was going to put it towards homelessness. And to your point, it's gotten way worse. You know, you driving down these roads, and guess what? They are way worse. Even the police. You know, the police. You know, people don't want to be police officers anymore. You know, but I mean, let me not say that. The thing about about recruiting has died down a lot, and so now it's, you know, now they're trying to, you know, overcompensate with overtime and things like that. But we need more. We need more people who, you know, we need the police academy to start growing. How can we create, you know, that, you know, where people want to actually be policing more? We need to get this city better. The city has gone down tremendously. And you know, I saw a post earlier today, um, you know, where Gavin Newsom was talking about, you know, this is the greatest country in the world, and actually it was yesterday. This is one of the greatest states in the world, and you know, we did this and that, and some people was like, yeah, people don't like California, they could go somewhere else, and blah blah. I'm like, I was born and raised in California, and this ain't the same California that I know. So much has changed, man. It's crazy. If you guys knew, you know, the California before, it was a great city. And I'm not saying the city is still not good, but it's going down and down. And I just have to believe that it's going to get way worse before it gets better. And that's unfortunate, man. Like these officials, they, especially in California, they talk bad about, you know, a businessman being in the highest office in the country. But all these numbers and stuff like that, all these things that we're doing, all these moves that need to be made, like trying to figure out a good budget that won't necessarily affect the people of the city, you know, the workers of the city, but also meet your need. You have to try to figure out like ways around doing that. But their first thing is they want to cut, you know, the average person's job. And that's unfortunate to me, man. It's going to be tough for a lot of people out here. They're estimated about 1,600 job cuts. And I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday also about, you know, how the budget is divvied out, but they were telling me like 50% of it was police, but it's like 14%, which is still a good number. And then you have it like divvied out, you know, amongst the other areas in, you know, in Los Angeles. But it's, you know, unfortunate, man. Like somebody's gonna lose their job. And I can't really say that they didn't look into other ways of making, you know, this, you know, changing this budget up or finding where, you know, we could get other resources from. But I don't think they did, because this is what they always do. They raise taxes and they cut jobs. That's just what it is. You know, hopefully, you know, things, you know, change up somehow. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to the next topic, we're gonna go ahead and tap into college football. I know we had the draft yesterday. We're gonna talk about it a little later. But we have Nico Ima Laiva. I know I pronounced that wrong. But this is something I wanted to talk about a while ago. And he basically he's a quarterback for Tennessee. And so he was getting like, I think 2.4 million in NIL deals. And so he wanted upgrade. He said, do me like Beyonce. So unfortunately, you know, for him, Tennessee said no. We're not giving you none of that. So What happened was he ended up transferring to now I think UCLA. And get this, he's still not getting that $4 million. And you know what? He's actually getting less than he was getting before. So tell me what you think about that.
I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, you know, I get the whole, you know, fact that he was trying to get what he felt like he was worth. You know, NIL has opened up a whole new space for athletes, you know, in order for them to, you know, kind of make some money off their name, a likeness and image.
Right.
You know, so for that aspect, I understand that is something it's been a long time coming and should have happened a long time ago, you know. But the way that it's happening, this is just the infant stage, you know. So there's gonna be some ways and means that needs to be better. You know, I'm pretty sure that they'll work out, you know, the kinks, you know, but sometimes, you know, people don't get what they feel like they deserve. And sometimes, you know, it's better to just stay put, you know, versus you feeling like you should get more, you know.
Right.
And especially if you haven't, you know, done anything to bring like a championship or, you know, help the team, you know, become better just on your performance alone, you know. So those are some of the factors we can be looking at. I mean, you may be listening to an agent, you may be listening to your dad, or you may be listening to some type of um, person that's giving you some information that may not be exactly true.
And let's stop right
Because a
there.
lot,
Because
yeah, because
I
it
wanna
was like, all
include
right,
that.
dude, look at you. You didn't take the team anywhere last year, so why do you think you should get more? Yeah, I mean your measurables and your talent, all that stuff is great, but you have to produce something with that, you know. And if you haven't produced anything, then you know, okay, let's see what we can do this year, you know. And if you have another year, then we may be able to turn it around from there, you know.
Right.
So
And
I just
I
think
think that's
it's
the thing. Like I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's what came to mind is that we have to be careful who we listen to. You know what I mean? Because he didn't have a stellar year last year. However, you have some people that puts a battery in your back and they have you do stuff that may not necessarily make sense and mess things up for you. So like his dad, I think his dad it was the one who asked him to, you know, told him to, you know, or went to them and asked for more money. And unfortunately, like it doesn't look like they did their research. If it was me and my son, you know, I would be like, okay, let's look at all the schools. Okay, all the schools that could give us what we want, right? And then how many of those schools need a quarterback? How many schools are hurting for a quarterback? And would I fit in right away and make a big impact? Because then you have more leverage than just asking for more money. Because now he put himself in a situation, you know, initially where he was going around trying to look and see who wanted him, and nobody else needed a quarterback, and nobody was willing to pay him that amount of money. And so now he goes to UCLA, which, you know, I know their offense is a little different, and it may or may not be an ideal situation for him. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But now he's taking less money than he was getting from Tennessee. And so I'm just saying we just have to be careful who we listen to. You know, if it's something that I don't know and I have to, you know, consult like, you know, one of my kids in that area, and I don't know, but I'm gonna try to find out from the people who know what they're talking about in that area, or do my research and try to figure out, like, you know, what's the right thing to do. You know, maybe it is stick around one more year, like you said, and then maybe he could put himself in a better position because they have a great year. But now I think he put himself in a bad situation, and then also how the other schools gonna look at him. You know, I don't know. This I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too deep into it as it relates to that, but you know, sometimes, you know, people start to look at you, you know, different when you have, you know, disagreements or, you know, fallouts or something with other schools, you know. So yeah. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I don't really care, you know, that much because he's a Bruin. I'll just leave it at that. I hope it works out for the young man. You know, and I did want to play this video because Ryan Clark had a take on it. We'll see what Ryan Clark has to say.
Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel informing the team that they are parting ways, dismissing whatever it is. Quarterback Nico Iamaleava is one of the situations that shows you leadership matters. Everybody's going to say that the NIL and the transfer portal era is ruining college football. It's not ruining college football. But what it is distorting the good feeling people used to have around it, because the former president of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, and the NCAA wouldn't do what was right. They wouldn't give a player or players the opportunity to earn money off of their name, image, and likeness. And because they refuse to do that, now we have a situation where Nico can see Carson Beck, who underachieved at Georgia, go make $4 million in Miami and say, oh, I want that. And if you believe somebody outside of Tennessee ain't told him that they're going to pay him more than what Tennessee is giving him, then you're out your mind. And so now, because Mark Emmert and the NCAA didn't do the one thing the NCAA was created to do back in the early 1900s by Teddy Roosevelt, which is to protect players, because they wouldn't do that, we now have a situation where you have people on the outside thinking Iamaleava is greedy because he wants more than 2 million or 2.4 million. Well, if that's what you're seeing in a capitalist era or in a capitalist society where there is no rules, there is no regulations, because the NCAA refused to do what's right, why is he wrong? And now you make the University of Tennessee, you make their football team, you make their head coach make a decision to dismiss this kid or make a decision to part ways with this kid, because at some point they got to put their foot down, because you've given them no rules and regulations to say, okay, son, this is all we can do. This is all anybody can do. Now make a decision on what's the best place for you to grow, for you to learn, and for you to succeed in the future. And that's why leadership matters. That's why representation matters. That's why you got to say, if something is right, let's do our best to do the right thing.
I'll stop it right there. So, firstly, do you think NIL is ruining college sports?
No.
Okay. No context. Okay. No. All right. All right.
I don't think it is. I mean, I can expand, but yeah, I don't think it is.
Why would you? What? Because I know we kind of talked about it before we started. But and you brought up the point where it's kind of in the infancy stages as well, like that. You know, you kind of mirrored the same exact sentiments that Ryan Clark said. You know, there's no rules, there's no guidelines and stuff like that. What do you think that they can do to improve the way it goes to help improve, you know, or not have these type of things that happen where, you know, somebody leaves and, you know, because of a certain amount of money that they want and they're not getting that?
I mean, you make it like the NFL. I mean, you make them sign a contract. You got to at least do 2 years. You
or
know,
Tennessee is giving
you
them,
can
then you're out
sign
your
for
mind.
whatever
And
money.
so now, because Mark Emmert and the
Put a cap,
NCAA didn't do the one
you
thing
know, on the amount of money that, you know, a certain player can get, you know, certain positions. And then you go from there. You see how that, you know, allows, you know, the NIL to move forward with some, well, in a better way, I can say. Because as of now, it's just, you know, get in, you get out, and move to the next one. You get in, you get out, you move to the next one. And that may work for some people, you know, but these situations right here, you know, that can happen and will happen. You know, I'm pretty sure if the dude was balling out and doing better, he would have got that money. You know, the boosters would have made sure of it. So it's just kind of like, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, if you feel like you're worth that amount, you go test the portal, and if you can get it, great. If you don't, you'll be somewhere else. Well, maybe you're a little bit more happier, you know, and then that's just what it is.
Got it. Got it. I know in basketball it's a little different, right? Well, I see it's different because in football, would you have to stay 3 years or 2 year? A certain age was it?
Before you enter the draft,
Yeah, you have to stay until you're like
2
20
years, stay to your junior year.
junior year. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So
basketball, you can leave right after your
one and
freshman
done.
year, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one and done. You could be one and done. So if you look at that, you know, like you got cats is making like 7, you know, up to 7 million, probably more, you know, for 1 year because you know they're done. But then if you look at the coaches are kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place because they have to figure out how to get that one player every year because it's usually one and done. But their job is to win games on a consistent basis. So if you have one person who's coming in and, you know, they ball out and then they leave, you have to try to figure out how to get that one person all the time. And so I can see how it could be difficult, you know, for programs to stay consistently on top moving forward. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see, you know, how things play out. But just, you know, listening, you know, from listening to some coaches, they're kind of you know, giving those sentiments that, you know, that one and done kind of makes it difficult for them to to be successful in the long term. Yeah. So shout out to him, man. Hopefully he's successful. Hopefully when he plays the Trojans. You're echoing a little bit, so that's why I muted you. But hopefully when they play the Trojans, they lose. But other than that, hopefully, you know, he does amazing. So shout out to him. And I know you got to go. Surely we'll try to tackle this last subject. So we had the NFL draft, round 1. The Titans grab Cam Ward at number 1. The Jags grab Travis Hunter. I'm sorry, not round 1. Yeah, it was round 1. Number 1 pick. Travis Hunter goes number 2 to the Jags. And the Giants grab Abdul Carter at number 3. But there's some headlines out making waves because we thought somebody would get picked in the first round. They didn't. Shedeur Sanders dropped out of the first round. And to this point, I don't know if he has yet to be selected to my knowledge. So what do you think about that, CuZZo? What do you think about him dropping out of round 1, undrafted, as of lately, as of now?
Yeah, I mean, it's circumstances. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you can have all the star power, you know, in the world, but it just comes down to a team's first and foremost, needs, which there were some teams that needed a quarterback, and they also needed some other positions, that they might have valued more in the first round versus a quarterback, with the skill set of Mr. Shedeur Sanders. By any means, I'm pretty sure he's going to be picked in the second, third round, with no doubt. But you're dropping out of the first round. It's not as bad as people may make it seem, because it's a story. But you definitely want to drop out of the first round if you can go to the team that really wants you, go to a team that's going to know how to utilize your talents and your skill set, and will gear the offense towards, that very same thing. So and I watched a few commentary, about it today, and what people had to say. Oh, well, they said this and that, because his dad is going to be there and influential and be in his ear. That may very well may be, and that's up to that organization's discretion to say, I don't want to have to deal with that, and for whatever reason, I get it. Sometimes when you're in sports, you can have those parents that, are a little bit too overbearing, not to say that this is the case, but I'm just speaking on, the commentary I heard, the reasoning behind it. I think Stephen A mentioned, media kind of helping his draft stock go down because of the type of person. He's arrogant. His dad's going to be there a lot, so you may not want this around your organization, and that's true. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's their prerogative. If they don't feel like this person's going to come in and be worth the risk or worth the headache of having to deal with that, then yeah, you're going to pick another quarterback that's just going to come in and work and not come with the show, because it's going to be a show. Some people don't want that in their organization, and you may miss out on one of the greatest talents ever, and you can live with that. 9 times out of 10, people don't care, So, wish him all the luck. I'm pretty sure he's going to definitely be, a talent for years to come in the NFL, and his story is still being written.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was took a look at their YouTube, and he had like a draft party. They was, excited at first, and you could see, as, went further and further along, that the excitement started to die down, respectfully so. And, I actually saw what you're talking about too, about Stephen A. And then you had, Swagoo, saying that it wasn't that, that his tape just wasn't that good. And I'll say I didn't watch a large amount of Colorado games, but I will say that he shouldn't have dropped this far if other teams needed quarterbacks. And we'll just have to see, how this plays out. And it could be one of those things where teams passed on him that really needed a quarterback, and he becomes a Tom Brady, and he takes a team to 6-7 championships. Or it could be the case where he's a Jamarcus Russell, and he has a 2-3 year career, and he's gone out the league. But I think football is a sport You know, any sport though, to be honest, there's a lot of sports out there where you have to have a chip on your shoulder. You know, and what he does, I mean, it could come off to some as cocky, arrogant. It could come off, a certain way. But this kid was raised in a household with a guy who was very opinionated. He was raised with a guy, I'm sure, said, "Don't be scared to be you." You know, he was raised by a guy who, has a big personality. And I don't think if that is the reason why he didn't get drafted, I don't believe that's okay. But guess what? I'm not an owner and I can't, I can't pay you millions of dollars a year. So my opinion in that regards doesn't matter. But man, I wish the best for Shador. Hopefully, he goes to a great situation for him and he balls out. And I don't know if he'll, be quiet, but I think that is a great thing to do, man. Ball out, show them that they're wrong, and don't say a word. Because I guarantee you, the streets will be talking. They'll tell your story for you. They'll tell your legacy for you. So if I have any advice for you, man, go out there and do your thing, ball out, and let them tell your story. So, man, anywho, that's it for today. For today's episode of What's Up CuZZo. Man, we talked about the draft. We talked about Shannon. We appreciate each and every one of you for rocking with us. And please, as we always say, like, comment, and subscribe. Shout out to my cousin for jumping back in. Do you have any final thoughts before we leave, CuZZo? Are you good? No? Okay. All right then. Well, no, I was saying, do you have any final thoughts before we hop off? Are you good? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, man, I'm gonna have to get my audio together. That's one of my final thoughts. But I appreciate you holding it down as always. Yeah, man, I'll just say, man, we got to continue to, focus on, looking at things from a perspective that's not tied to anyone else's, which is the media, which is a Republican or a Democrat. We got to continue to look at things from a perspective of, is this the right thing to do? Is this the fair thing to do? That's the way we got to continue to look at things. So this way, he'll be out. Yeah. And that's all I have to say about that.
100%. Well, thank you everyone for hopping on. Thanks for everybody tuning in to us. We will see you next time. Peace.